Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Ewing with Reach the Unlimited, and I am so happy to have Michael Mayo as my guest on the show today. I'm sure a lot of you do know him and some of you don't, but he is an amazing teacher and medium. And he also has a book that just came out. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Joanne. Thanks for having me on here.
Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Yeah, I have been a medium developing my mediumship, I should say, since 17 years in March. I mean, not March, February. So next month. So next month will be 17 years of that process, and since then, it's taken me on quite a journey of personal development, developing my abilities over in the UK as well with mediums like Gordon Smith and Eileen Davies, who are two of my mentors, who I think are pretty fantastic.
Mhm.
And it has kind of led me to deepen my connection and understanding of the spirit world. And that's what I do now as I teach people how to connect with the spirit world. And I give readings and demonstrations. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I do.
Well, I'm curious. I don't think I've ever asked you this because you and I have known each other for a while now. And what was the tap on the shoulder for you?
Yeah, so it wasn't so much a tap as it was a, hey, this is you. Um, it was essentially I stumbled into a mediumship demonstration, and the medium came to me and said, "You're a medium. You need to start developing, and one day you'll be doing what I'm doing." And I said, "What? I've never had any kind of mediumistic experience in my life. I don't know what this guy's talking about." But I went to my first development circle and was able to get names, dates, specifics, all kinds of amazing information. And I thought to myself, wow, I guess that guy was right. And then I went to the next development circle and I got nothing. I went to the next one and I got nothing. And I went to the next one and I got nothing. And I think for me, it caused me to go, okay, wait a second. There's something here. It worked once. Why did it work once? And how do I get it to work again? And so that's what started me on my mediumship journey.
What I find fascinating about I had actually a very similar experience that you had. But one of the things that you said, I think a lot of people have that question or feel like they're not really a true medium if they didn't have all these experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's encouraging for you to say, I've never experienced that because I did when I was younger, but I shut it all down. I didn't even know what I was experiencing because I didn't know anything about it. And I came from a Catholic background. So
Yeah.
you obviously weren't going to discuss these things. So talk to people about that because a lot of people feel like I'm not going to be a good enough medium if I didn't have this past experience, or I'm not doing it right because I didn't have this lineage. Can you talk
Yeah,
to people a little bit about that?
absolutely. I think that's a false belief that
Mhm.
has kind of been purported by other mediums that came before, because it was sort of this idea. Sorry, my hair is bugging me. That came from this idea of like you need to have some sort of special
Mhm.
evolved or
Mhm.
something like that. And the reality is like I didn't even have those things when I was a child. So like I didn't have any of that, but it was a skill that I learned to develop.
Mhm.
I think that um, it's important for people to recognize that you are a spiritual being having a human
Mhm.
experience. So you're already connected to the spirit world all the time. So even right now, you are already in spirit. You are
Mhm.
partially, your soul exists also there and here. And so it's only natural that people should be able to connect with the spirit world in this way. So for me, I don't think that well, you'll hear a lot of people say, when I was a child, I saw things, I heard things, I had experiences. And I don't think that that's necessarily any more or less indicator that one is mediumistic or has mediumistic potential. And the reason I say that is I have my own sort of theory about how it works. When I teach students, adults,
Mhm.
how to connect with the spirit world, I
Mhm.
am teaching them how to get out of their thinking mind, right?
Mhm.
Well, when you're a child, your prefrontal cortex is not developed. Your sense of identity of self is not developed. And therefore, you are kind of where I'm trying to teach my students to go to, which is without that sort of
Mhm.
clear sense of self and identity. which is also the thinking, reasoning part of your brain as well. And so it's easier for children, in my opinion, to
Mhm.
have an awareness of the spirit world because they're not overly thinking about things. They haven't also been indoctrinated that none of this is real. And so all of
Mhm.
that allows them to have these experiences. So you'll usually notice too that they start to go away somewhere around like 8 or 9. That's
Mhm.
usually when they start to diminish or go away. And that's
Mhm.
also, funnily enough, the same time that we start to identify ourselves as children separate from our parents and start to have more cognitive ability. So for me personally, I actually don't think um, that having experiences as a child really means anything more than,
Mhm.
yep, you are a spiritual being having human experience. And therefore, all we have to do is teach your thinking mind how to quiet, and anyone can do this.
I think because what I'm hearing when you were saying that is when you're a child, you just didn't know better. It just
Yeah,
is. You
yeah,
you trust reality. As we're adults, we have this paradigm we have to live in, and we don't even know that we can break through that. That's what I learned and why I started Reach the Unlimited was to break through those paradigms that we think are real.
yeah,
And the hardest thing about uh, one of the hardest things that people have trouble with in mediumship is doing that, being okay. But what you said is the stillness and the quieting of the mind. And we've talked a lot about, sitting in the power and what is sitting in the power. And I was just talking to someone recently that was like, no, I can't. And I'm not putting anybody down for this because we all have our own issues with sitting in the power or sitting in meditation, whatever it is. I get vertigo. I can't do this because I don't, I have all these wacky things happening. So talk to people a little bit about that because that's a process that people go through and that being okay with sitting in the stillness.
yeah. So it's not uncommon to have some of these experiences when
Mhm.
you are sitting. I was
Right.
telling students, you're going to experience all kinds of weird things. You're going to have all kinds of weird sensations. You're going to feel like the chair is wobbly. You're going to feel like your body is extended. You're going to feel like your awareness is moving up.
Mhm.
You're going to feel, all kinds of things. There's just countless things that one can experience. It's going to make them go, what the heck is going on? Or I don't
Mhm.
feel well. Sometimes some people feel nauseous, especially if they come back
Mhm.
too quickly. So there's all kinds of things that can happen. However, these are all temporary. So if
Mhm.
you never learn to relax past it, if you never learn to relax beyond that discomfort, temporary discomfort, then you won't get the benefits that come later because that will all go away. Any
Right.
kind of discomfort or like whatever you're experiencing, that's temporary and it will go away if you give it enough time.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted you to bring that up because it is temporary and we have to get through because it is I don't want to say it's our belief system, but it's a kind of a after effect to our belief system. It's a change. We're unused to that difference because it all is energy and feeling
Absolutely.
spirit is energy. So when we're feeling something in a different way, then we can be uneasy by it.
Yeah, and I think also too, think of it this way. When you wanna make a change, you
Hmm.
have to go through some level of discomfort of
Yeah.
some sort, right? If you work out, right, if you're exercising, your muscles become sore, right? So
Right.
you doesn't mean, "Oh, my muscles are sore, now I need to stop." It's,
Right.
"My muscles are sore, great, that means something's adjusting, my body's adapting."
Exactly.
Similarly, energetically, for some people, and honestly, it's a very, very small percentage of people.
Yeah.
Some people, they do feel a little bit of sense of either nausea
Mhm.
or they feel like a pressure or maybe a discomfort of some sort, but it's temporary, it'll pass, it's just your energy adjusting.
I didn't feel the nausea or the real big influctuations of the energy until I was doing trance. That's when it was like, oh, and now it's like, bring it on. I know I'm getting deeper when I start feeling the expansion or nausea or the
Yeah.
taking. It's a wonder. I love that feeling. So now I'm just like, yes, more of that, please.
Well, yeah, 'cause it's leading you to the part that's blissful. If
Exactly.
you can get past that
Yeah.
little bit of discomfort,
Mhm.
you're actually gonna pop to the other side and
Mhm.
have that blissed out amazing experiences that come,
Mhm.
when you feel the spirit presence really, really close. And again, I really wanna emphasize, that is like 1% of people experience the discomfort.
Right.
It's such a small, small, small percentage of people. I teach tons of people that come through my
Mhm.
school, Bridge Institute, that Joanne actually also is a part
Mhm.
of. Um, it's rare that you experience this, and if they do, it's temporary.
I find that interesting, and then we're gonna go back to Oak Ridge because we will touch on that too. What do you think is the difference between people who are more sensitive to that than not? Is it a deepening of maybe a connection, or it's just them being more sensitive as a person, or what would you say would be the personality trait for something like that?
Yeah, it's less to do with the like a personality trait as much as
Mhm.
it is. Well, maybe it does. It has to do with resistance.
Mm,
So if there's a part of us that is resisting, or maybe it's not moving the way that it needs to move, that's
mm,
when we usually start to feel the discomfort part.
mhm,
So what I always tell my students is learn to relax and let go. If you have an
mm,
awareness of that, relax past it.
mm,
So let go, because it's when if we're expanding and then we're kind of trying to hold on to our normal state of awareness, it can create that friction, it can create that, tension that's experiencing that we experience that. Most people, if they learn to just let go of that space, breathe into it, surrender, follow the breath, that will usually ease any kind of discomfort. So it's about us kind of getting past that point, and that's only going to come when we sort of let go. So I believe it's actually holding, it's tension.
mm,
So if you want to talk about personality trait, it can be sometimes that we either have fear, or we have some sort of anxiety around what's
mhm.
going on, and that causes us to hold on to things.
Or maybe not wanting to be wrong.
Yeah.
It tends to be one too, right? If you tend to be an overachiever, that kind of person.
Yeah, I mean, that
Yeah.
can absolutely be a contributing factor, but
Mhm.
by no means does that mean they can't get there. It's
Exactly.
it's just an extra it's just a
Mm,
little bit of extra work, but we all have it. So one
yeah.
person might have something to work on here, another person's gonna have
Mhm.
something to work on here. It's just everyone's a little different.
Well, I think that's a good point. It's not that any one thing is better or worse than the other because all of us have to learn the actual surrendering and the letting go. And that's the part for human nature that would be the most difficult part of me. I know for me, man, it was a trial for me to be able to just surrender and let go and not wanting to control.
And it's a continuous process. I mean, I'm still learning to go
Exactly.
even deeper, and that's the funny thing
Mhm.
about surrendering and letting go. You actually don't know how much you're letting go until you let go a little
More,
deeper and a
yes.
little more free, and then you go, "Whoa, I was barely even letting go before." And I didn't realize that because I hadn't had the experience that there's somewhere else to kinda go with it.
That's the one thing that I do talk about a lot and teach as well is that you're always a student when it comes to your development. Because, as we've said before in our conversations about how we're really facing our own personality, we're really facing ourselves when we're surrendering and letting go. So, for me too, I agree. It's a lifelong process of continuing to let go and we become deeper. Because, I always, you watch other mediums and okay, this person got this information or that person got that kind of information or they got deeper here. But we're always like, we can always go deeper and explore even more of what the communicator is giving to us. And I think that's the process of learning as well.
Absolutely. I think you put it really, really well. We're always going to be going deeper. We're always going to be letting go. And
Mhm,
anyone who is, developing your mediumship, it's about how we react to each point
mhm,
as we go along. If you
right.
can learn to make every reaction a surrender response
Mhm,
rather than trying to control something or get anxious or whatever, because that's
mhm.
usually the reaction we have. We
Yes.
want to learn to just respond and train ourselves to notice, accept, let it go,
Right.
which eventually turns into notice, describe when you're doing a mediumship reading,
Mhm,
let it go, and be ready for the next thing.
mhm,
And that's why sitting in the power is such an important concept, because that is actually how you learn to notice, accept, let it go. When you're sitting in the power, it's not about you going and having an experience or connecting to, loved ones and things like that. It's learning about how do you just become still, notice whatever you're feeling, let it pass, and just not let your mind grab onto it or become attached to it. That's what's going to help you with your mediumship the most. And that's what's going to transfer into your actual active readings, right? The notice, accept, let it go turns into notice, describe, let it go, and be
mhm.
ready for the next thing.
Now, you also are a teacher to the teachers as well, you could say. And you wrote a book, Spirit Speaks. Do you want to talk about the book and why you decided to write
Yeah,
that?
so I don't know if it's gonna show up straight or
Yeah,
backwards, but uh,
perfect.
this is Spirit Speaks. This is my book that I wrote, and it is a step-by-step guide on how you can connect, have genuine spirit communication. And I wrote it because I wanted to be able to hand someone something and be like, look, read this, and you have everything that you need as a
Mhm.
foundational stepping, point of everything that has to do with mediumship. I tended to find that a lot of mediumship books are a lot of personal stories. There
Mhm.
are a lot of people telling, the readings that they have given and things like that, with like maybe a little bit of guidance and direction. And this is not that. This is filling the need of, here you go. Here's the exact step by step of how you're going to experience these things. Here's what you need to understand in the front part of it. So it's answering a lot of questions, and it's getting a lot of practical, usable exercises that are going to help you to make your link to the spirit world.
Yes, absolutely. What I love about it is you were actually going through the teacher's training for the Oak Ridge Institute, and you took a break off because you decided to write this book. And I'm like, I have got to do what Michael did.
Yeah,
He
take a
just
break.
checked out with life and said, I'm writing this book and I'm not letting anything else get in the way. So if y'all want to write a book,
Yeah, that's how you get. I wrote it in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I wrote a book in 3 weeks, and I will do that again, I'm sure, because I am someone who just like, once I know I'm doing something, I just dive right into it, and that's it. And like something like this, I'd never written a book, so I didn't know how many hours it was going to take. I didn't know how many words I could write each session. Turns
Mhm,
out I can write about 4,000 words before I'm
mhm,
totally pooped
mhm.
a night. And so, yeah, like this book obviously needed to be written as well. I think that's part of the
Mhm.
reason why it came out so fast. But the feedback I've gotten from it has been so positive. I mean,
Yeah.
just so many people have said, I wish I had this book when I
Mhm,
first started developing. A lot of people
mhm.
say it's such an easy read,
It
and yet
is.
it was
Mm,
still filled with like so much detail. So
mhm.
I love getting that feedback. I mean, it's my first book I ever wrote, and people seem to be really, really pleased with it. So I'm like, yay! I did it again.
What's gonna be the next book?
That's a good question. It's kind of going to depend on the continued feedback. What's the need? I'm kind of a person who makes those choices based off of what's the need of others. And
Yeah.
I will let that sort of speak to me. I have several ideas, but which one I'm going to actually dive into, I'm not quite sure yet.
Okay. Okay. So you also started a school called Oak Bridge Institute.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about why. What was your the heart and the reason for starting that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking about that. Oak Ridge Institute, I created, I think it's 2 years in July. I think it's 2 years in July.
Okay.
Um, and I created it because I wanted to. Well, as we all know, there's a million teachers out there who teach
Mhm.
this sort of topic. And it's been my experience that they didn't necessarily, like, they're always somewhat lacking in some spaces. Not all of them, but
Mhm.
there's things lacking. Sometimes the teacher has a huge ego, and it's really, really hard to handle that.
I've
Sometimes
experienced that before.
yeah. Sometimes they're very, very hard or critical.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's really about them and not about the students learning.
Mhm.
Sometimes, it can be all kinds of different things. Um, and through my years of teaching prior to having this school, I've had to sort of rehabilitate all of these students who found their way to me, who would tell me these, terrible stories about the things they experienced with these other teachers. And for me, I was blessed with some amazing teachers. Gordon Smith, Henry
Mhm.
Davies, those are my teachers, and they are incredible. They're lovely. They create the right space for learning.
Mhm.
And I thought it was important to create something that would create a safe, harmonious, and positive environment where if you came to any one of the classes ever taught here, you knew you were going to be treated kindly, that you were going to be supported, that everyone was going to be welcome, and that it was going to take away the tension that can come from putting the pressure on students like give me information, give me information. That to me is not the way to learn. I think that it's really about learning to be spirit led and let the spirit world lead you and guide you throughout the entire reading. Um, I think that's also another difference. A lot of teachers say, yes, I let the spirit lead me, and yet they're forcing their students to go get information, make it happen, dig for it, search for it, all of that sort of thing. And I don't think that's how you learn this best. And so for me, it was about filling in a need for quality, high standard, consistent teaching. So that's where that came from.
It's an interesting concept because I feel like there's so much to that. You see, the thing is, you're not trying, right? You're just allowing the information to flow to you. And I have had teachers that are like really shoving things down you, wanting for you to work hard, and that's not what mediumship is about.
Right.
But yet there's that other side of being open to, like, we were saying earlier, being open to deeper information. I guess what I'm saying is that in the beginning, it was good to have a direction. Okay, we're going to do X, we're going to do Y, we're going to do Z. But in the reading, just allowing the information to come and not judging that information. But yet, I still feel like, even though that's what I'm allowing, the information just to come, and I love it because I always get those, really? I love it when you're receiving that information. You just know, like, you're going down the most glorious path, like golden nuggets here. And I get really excited about it. But how do you balance that in between, where you're because you don't want to go in with a checklist. You don't want to go in with ABC. You want to allow it to flow. But how do you get that balance between getting those really deep pieces of information and allowing spirit to just guide you at the same time?
Yeah. So
A lot of
the big thing that's going to help with that balance is
Mhm.
letting go of an attachment that you need to get those
Mhm.
types of things. The sooner you let go that there's anything I have to achieve in this reading for it to be, good or have an impact or whatever,
Mhm.
the sooner you get rid of all of those things, the sooner you will follow the flow of the spirit and let them bring it to you. So what we have to recognize is that we may want certain things from the reading, but the reality is that it's not about what we want. It's about
Yes.
what's important to the sitter. So if
Mhm.
we come at it thinking, oh, a street address is really important, or a first and last
Mhm.
name is really important, or
Mhm.
some sort of thing that's wow, nugget,
Mhm.
right? That's our opinion. But to
Right.
someone else, they're going to experience that and they may be like, yeah, I already knew his name. What, like, why are you telling me that? I want to know if he's okay. I want to know if, whatever the thing may be. And then
Mhm.
the other thing, so what student is doing is they're judging. They're judging from
Mhm.
the outset, thinking that this is good quality information and this isn't. And so it's important for us to not judge the information that we get. So we need to make sure that when we are learning this, is that we always comes down to trusting the intelligence of the spirit, and that the
Mhm.
spirit will tell you what is important. They will, if you just hand it over completely to them, they'll take care of all of those amazing wow nuggets because your sitter is going to understand it all. They're going to get it. It's going to deepen as you unfold. So for me and my philosophy of teaching mediumship, there is no goal of trying to get any wow,
Exactly.
just following the flow of the spirit.
Well, I find I get the wows when I'm doing that,
Yep. Yep.
because that's where you're open to the and you could feel it. I always feel it. It's like, oh, I get all excited. I really do. It's like, oh, this is really cool. I can't believe this, because I'm not hunting for it or grabbing for it. I'm just allowing. It's like having a conversation like you and I are having.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, when you're in the flow,
Mhm.
there's ease. When you're in
Mhm.
the power, there's ease to the
Mhm.
communication. There's no tension that you need to achieve or get or do. You just move into it. And as Christine Morgan, another teacher
Mhm.
at Oakbridge, says, it's about spending time with the spirit world. If you
Mhm.
just view it as I'm just sharing time, I'm spending time with the spirit world, if you view it that way, it's no longer about an achievement or an outcome. Just share the time with the spiritual presence and let them give you what they want to give. That takes away all the pressure. Now you're just being the like not the interpreter, but the medium, for lack of a better word, between them and the people in
Works.
front of you. So
Mhm.
let go of needing to get wow information. That stuff, let that be a byproduct of your surrender.
So, what do you think would be someone who's been a medium for a pretty long period of time? They've got the flow going and everything's going well. What do you think would be something that would be a hiccup in their journey, or something they should be aware of? Because you could become complacent.
If you're following the spirit and you're genuinely surrendering and letting go,
Mhm.
there won't be any kind of complacency. The reason I say that is because each reading is different. Each
Yeah.
person that you get is going to be different. It's
Mhm.
when we have any preconceived ideas of what the information is supposed to look like that we
Mhm.
get stuck inside these little bars. For
Mhm.
example, if I don't trust the spirit enough, I might myself try to get something that feels like it's gonna be right. So I
Yeah.
might always go for grandmothers, or I might always get this kind of communicator. And it's
Mhm.
because I feel safe doing that because I know that these people are more likely to be on the other side. Not
Mhm.
always the case, guys. People live old.
Yes.
So, um,
Thanks.
but it's that concept of if you're actually following the spirit and you're surrendering, if you're actually doing that, you won't have hiccups. There will never be a hiccup
Mhm.
if you're actually doing it. The only hiccups come is when your mind starts to get in. So if your mind starts to come in and you start to influence the communication, whether that is from wanting a certain outcome, whether that's becoming distracted by the way that your sitter is
Mhm.
responding, or whether that's having an expectation of what you think it's supposed to be, those things are going to cause the issues. It's never from just surrendering and being in the flow. That's the goal. Everything that inhibits that flow is where the issues come from.
You've been doing this for a while. Do you when you're going to do an event, do you still feel that anxiety or that revving up of nervousness when you're gonna go and do maybe a dem or a platform, some form of that kind of
Every
thing?
single time. Every single time. There is never a moment where you don't feel that
Mhm.
anxiety before a demonstration or something because you cannot prepare for this. You cannot do
Yeah.
anything that you can plan ahead to ensure that it's going to work really well or that it's going to be
Mhm.
really good. You have to have an open mind and just let an open heart and a willingness to be used by the spirit world and just trust. You have to, it's a free fall. Mediumship is a free fall. You can never plan for it. You can never do anything ahead of time. The only thing you can do is practice your surrender. That's
Mhm.
really the thing that will help you get to that space. As you become more confident in how you work, you sort of get into a system. There's an approach, a
Yeah.
consistent approach
Mhm.
that starts to
Yeah.
happen where
Mhm.
once you start down that little pathway, for example, for me, it's when I go into my opening spiel, I
Mhm.
start to move my awareness automatically knows after all these years, oh,
Mhm.
we're about to move into this headspace. It
Mhm.
helps me to move into that space. So you develop a process that you can sort of rely on. If I can feel this, great, it means it's going to work. I can relax now,
Mhm.
right? So everyone's going to be a little bit different about what that feels like, looks like for them, but you'll always have some sense of nerves. And the nerves can be more nervous anxiety or it can be excitement, right?
Mhm.
So they're very similarly related. So
Mhm.
it's important for us to know that it's okay to be nervous. In fact, it's probably a good thing because it shows that you're still in it. You're still knowing you have to be present and you don't know what's coming.
I agree with that. I've gotten better because I have a mantra knowing that I'm not doing the work. I'm just going to be there. They do the work. So whenever I go into it, I always tell them, hey, if we mess up, it's your fault because I'm just going to be your mouthpiece.
Hilarious. I always say to the spirit world three things. Is it three? I don't remember if it's three or four. I say, help me to get out of the way.
Mhm.
Help me to follow your lead.
Mhm.
Help me to surrender to you.
Mhm.
And I can't do this without you.
I love that. That's
Those four things together, that's my prayer to the spirit world every time I work.
yeah.
Those four things help my mindset really focus on the fact that this
Mhm.
isn't me. This isn't me doing this. And
Exactly.
I'm asking them for their help. And
Mhm.
all I have to do is get out of the way, follow their
Mhm.
lead, surrender to them, and know this isn't from me. This is from
Right. And I think that helps because I've seen a lot of mediums that work, and you can tell in the way that they're reading, it's ego. I'm doing this, and that's. I mean, you could feel it in their whole dem. You can just feel it, and that's okay. That's their experience. I'm not judging that, but I do. I'm joking in my it's your fault thing. It definitely is that partnership with spirit instead of just being me doing the whole thing. It's not me.
absolutely.
So we're talking about, people that have been established now, but how about people? What kind of advice would you give people that are just starting out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's really what this book is.
Mm,
So definitely Spirit Speaks is the entire thing I would want to say. But just to give you some little points,
mhm,
is your trust is the gift you give the other world. And that is an Eileen Davies quote, one of my teachers.
mhm,
And I 100% think that is one of the most important things, because a lot of people, they don't trust themselves in the process. So
Mhm.
your trust in yourself and your trust in the spirit world is what's going to free you from a lot of challenges, because mostly students run into the self-doubt problem,
Yeah.
where they're always afraid that, they're going to get it wrong, or they're not going to do it right, or what if I get it wrong? The
Mhm.
sooner you get over getting it wrong and getting a no, the better. And I understand that that is a really hard thing to do, especially because a lot of people, at the very beginning, we're
Mm.
trying to prove to ourselves that we can even do this, right?
Yes. Or
And
that
so,
it's real.
or that it's real. And so we have this sort of
Exactly.
hesitancy and this doubt, and that's going to take time and experiences to help you change your mind about that. But it's really important for you guys to do your best to get over getting no's. You need to get no's. You need to get no's in your development. It's how you learn what is correct information versus what's not. So in the early part, you're going to get tons of no's. Accept it, love it, and then celebrate it. And the sooner you can get over the no's, the more free your mediumship will be. So that's the next thing I would say, is that mediumship requires freedom, surrender, letting go. If you're coming at it with, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm not going to get this right, or oh no, I don't know if this is, and you're having all this hesitation, it's going to inhibit your experience. So just in the beginning, give everything. It doesn't matter if it's right, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. Your yeses and your nos are what's going to help you to identify which is which. And then I guess the last thing would be is, number one, sit in the power. That's huge.
Yeah.
But become aware of what you feel from the spirit world. That is far more important than the things that you see and the things that you hear.
Yes.
Because many of us in the beginning think that we're getting it from the spirit world, but it's actually our mind, because our mind loves to make up pictures to go with whatever we're feeling or experiencing. And so we end up giving a lot of things that we get wrong because we're going off of what we're seeing. Mediumship happens here. It happens in the heart, solar plexus area, or as I call it, the feeling plexus.
Mhm.
That is where mediumship happens. So if you can, and as Gordon says, mediumship is the art of feeling. If you can get into this space, get out of the head, into the heart, into the solar plexus area, that's where all your information, your good information, is going to come from. And even if you do get pictures, what is that picture making me feel?
Mhm.
That's a really important thing to recognize, because a picture may be coming, even though what you're feeling, your brain goes, oh, we got a picture for that, right? And so always stick with what you feel, because your picture may be wrong, but your feeling is rarely wrong.
That's a good point, because a lot of people that I work with as well, they feel like because I'm seeing it, it's real. That's telling me the whole I can believe all of it. Where we can like drive down the street and see something and think we saw it perfectly. And when you go back, you look at it, you go, oh, I missed that, or that was, so it really shows that it's really not the whole picture. So I'm happy you said that, because a lot of people, I think they miss that feeling part of it. That's what mediumship is all about, how you're feeling, how that information is coming. What's interesting that I just realized? I've always been that knowing. I've always had that knowing sense. So I was doing a reading the other day, and I smelt smoke going through. I don't get smoking very often because like everybody in the past generation smokes. So it's not a big thing. But anyway, I smelt this smoke going by me, and I realized for the first time I didn't actually smell it. I knew I smelt it.
Yeah.
That was really mind-blowing to me. So now I'm like, how much of all my other senses that I use are really coming still from that knowing,
Yeah.
but making me feel that it's coming from the other sense. I thought that was really intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really breaking down what your experience really is. Where
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
experiencing the
Yeah.
layers? How am I actually experiencing it?
Right. Yeah. Because you can take that for granted. Because I guess for me, when I just get into that moving of that energy, I'm just going with the energy and not paying attention to how it actually is coming. But
Yeah.
that was like this obvious, wait a minute, I didn't actually smell that. How did that in that split second? It was very
And
interesting.
it's awesome that you have I mean, that's continuously learning, continuously developing your awareness,
Right.
personal awareness, and how your mediumship works. And everyone's going to be different in their
Mhm.
experience. So
Yeah.
understanding your mediumship is the most important thing. And the other thing is being flexible, that your mediumship is going to change as
Yeah.
you develop. As you change, your mediumship changes. As you develop, your mediumship develops. So don't get married to any one way that it's going to be coming to you, because it can come to you in all kinds of different ways.
You know, I love that. That is really true. I've seen through my development that where I started, I'm not even close to that anymore. And it's not about my personality or anything. It's just that it's my evolving, my understanding, and then utilizing it another way. And then I evolve more and understanding use. Like, I was really into evidence, evidence, evidence,
Yeah.
evidence. I was going to be a concrete evidential medium. And that was good. I love that I put myself through really getting evidence because that's important. That's why we do mediumship, until I finally had to come to grips with that wasn't why we do mediumship.
Yep. Absolutely, absolutely. It's about the bringing forward something for the sitter, and it's more about, if you want to know why we do mediumship, it's the service to the person that's receiving it. If we make it about we need to get the evidence, right? It's not so great. That being said, you need a time period of training of how to get it.
You
That
do.
is important. However, it's not everything. In my book, I divide evidence up into two different pieces. One is the list information, so
Mhm.
facts, figures, dates, heights, careers, number of children, like facts and figures. The other way that I divide it up is in personal information. So this is information that you only could get if the person knew each other. And a lot of people, some people are going to want a little more list information. Some people are going to want a little more personal information. But either way, we need a balance of both
Yeah.
of these forms of evidence. If we don't have that, sometimes you might feel dry. I don't know if you ever watched a medium work that's very evidential, but it's just dry.
Boring.
Yes, it's boring. There's no heart in it.
There's
It's
no
literally
heart.
just like, okay, they drove this car and they looked like this, and then they had,
Yeah.
this kind
Mhm.
of paper towel. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about this for? Like, there's no heart. You're not bringing forward anything that is meaningful to this person. Yes, are your facts impressive? Absolutely, but they aren't in service to the sitter. They're in service to the medium.
Well, I think for me, the way that I learned it was good because it made me go look for them and be okay with getting facts and figures and all that. And I mean, I'm still going around going, I don't do names and occasionally, but I know when it's the important time.
Yeah.
When if it's really important, then that name will come to me very loud.
Mhm.
When I'm hunting for it, then I'm going to be questioning. Yeah, so you have to pay attention to it.
It's
But
it's not ever, don't ever try to get a name. Don't
right.
ever try, but it will come to you if you don't try to get it.
But I've noticed too, it's the level of my awareness to it is how important that particular topic would be. And going back to the evidence, I've noticed that really important evidence that needs to come out will come naturally in the reading. It's not like you have to have your checklist. And I want to say that because a lot of people feel like they have to have these certain things to be, I don't know,
Considered good.
legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I'm really in the flow, I notice that that information just comes to me. Those important things just come to me. So the evidence comes out through spirit.
Well, part of what makes lists and that sort of thing helpful is, like you said in the beginning, when you don't know what's possible, it's
Right.
helpful to have an idea of what could
Mhm.
come, right? But that's very, very framework. I don't actually
Yeah.
introduce any kind of like list, meaning
Mhm.
like, facts, figures, or maybe I
Mhm.
should say it that way. Facts and figures are always there, but like a checklist, like how did
Exactly.
they die? How did they, what they do for work? I don't actually introduce any of that to my students until they're in their like third year.
Mhm.
That's the time that I then go, okay, you get it enough. You understand how this works. You know how your mediumship works. You know how to not try or how to get information. Then I
Mhm.
might go, okay, let's just see if we can experiment. Can you get this kind of information? Can you get
Right.
this kind of information? But they're
Right.
already solid and matured
Mhm.
in their work. I would never do that to someone just starting off. That is
Right.
the surefire way to get them in their head, because as soon as you put a question to a student, their brain wants to answer it because that's the only thing they know how to get the information from.
Right. So I have a question for you. This has been a topic that I've had with a lot of other mediums about passings. How much do you talk about passings? Do people really want to hear about how their loved one passed? What is your feeling on passings?
Each spirit is different, and some
Mhm.
spirit people will talk about it and other people won't. And I'm okay with that. I don't need to know the passing every single time. I don't think the sitter needs to know every time.
Right.
Sometimes it is important. Sometimes
Right.
it is a part of the process. So I think in one's development and training, one should be taught how to get that, but
Mhm.
it should not be a requirement,
Mhm.
for anyone to give that every single time. It's sometimes helpful, but sometimes it's not.
Well, I agree with you. I find for me, it's the spirit that brings it up, and if they hang on it for a longer period of time, I know there's a reason for that. If I don't ever come up with the passing, it doesn't ever come into my awareness, and I know that that wasn't important in
Yeah,
the reading. So,
yeah,
yeah. But
would
some
agree.
people are like, they really hone in on that passing thing. I'm like, why would you
Yeah.
want to hone in on the passing? That's scary.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not. I mean, it's not scary, right? Because we know that they continue on, right? Like,
Yeah. Well,
they
I don't
continue
mean scary
on.
in that way, but that's
Yeah,
a good point. They do
yeah,
continue.
they continue on, so it's like how we all leave this world
Right.
is just gonna be a different mode of transportation. So
Right.
for me, I'm like, passing condition is just the way that they cross. It's more so me wanting to protect the sitter from
Mhm.
potentially being
Mhm.
re-traumatized or something like that, and I just trust that the spirit will give it if it's important, if they need to hear or
Mhm.
talk about it, then it will come. But, it people do pass. It's just a part of life, and nobody's guaranteed a certain amount of time or that everyone's going to
Right.
pass squishy in their bed at the end of life. When you do this work long enough, you really realize there's an exit many, many different ways and styles. And so, I guess for me, I don't get too squeamish around passing because like we're all going to get there. Spoiler alert, everyone, we're all going to die.
We are.
But then we're all going to live. So there you go.
That's well, we will continue to live,
Yeah.
exactly. So when you're working with people and you start developing, not only are you learning how to trust spirit and listening to the information and being guided by spirit, how did that also help you with your self-development?
Yeah, so those two things go hand in hand. When you and they're two different paths, so we can never replace personal development with our
Mhm.
spiritual development and
Mhm.
vice versa, right?
Mhm.
So these are two different paths that influence each other, but they're
Mhm.
not in replacement of that work. The amazing thing about mediumship is that it requires vulnerability. And
Mhm.
so anytime that you're going to do a reading, you have to become vulnerable because you can't plan for it. You can't decide how it's going to go. And so what ends up happening is that when you are faced with this vulnerability, all
Mhm.
the issues that you have or all the issues that maybe you do whenever faced with vulnerability to protect yourself start to come out. So things like perfectionism,
Mhm.
self-doubt, self-criticism, right? These kinds of things start to come up. And as they do, they're a great opportunity for you to start to explore where is this coming from for me? How can I work on this on my personal life so that it doesn't impact my mediumship? So it's a beautiful opportunity for these things to become triggered in you so that you can then become aware of them and work on them. So those two things go really well together.
Do you think that a medium could be a good medium if they're not paying attention to that kind of work internally?
Could they be a good medium? I think they can be a good medium. I think that they can get accurate and specific information,
Mhm.
absolutely. But I do think that they might be missing out on the personal development and really the benefit, and who knows how much better their mediumship can be if they were to deal with some of these things that are going on within them. But I do know many a medium who hasn't really done the personal work and are still very accurate,
Huh,
but that is different. Who knows what it could be if
yeah,
something more. Now, that is an exception, not the rule,
yeah,
because what we often see is that when people haven't dealt with their personal work, right?
yeah.
And they're doing a reading, let's say they had some sort of personal like abuse within the family, and
Mhm.
then a male abuser comes in to
Mhm.
communicate, boom, their stuff is triggered and they maybe let their mind come in or some sort of emotion starts to arise. So I'm not saying that just because one can means that one should not, still develop their personal thing. I think actually your mediumship will be 10 times better when you do work on yourself personally to because ultimately guys, we're not only doing this for the spirit world, we need to be able to hold space for the other person's
Yeah,
experience. And if
exactly.
we aren't matured in
Mm.
our own way, and matured in our own spiritual, or sorry, not spiritual, but like personal development,
Mhm.
how can you hold space for another person like that without yourself being triggered?
You know what? This is one of those moments, you guys, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation point. That is so important to say because it's not about us doing a reading for the sitter. It's not about us being the voice box for the spirit. It's about the healing that goes on with that and holding that space for that person. And I think that, Eileen also is a mentor of mine. For you guys to know that she's actually going to be my guest on the show next week. Yay.
Oh my God, I need to tune in.
She is. And I was talking with Eileen, or sent Eileen a message about a group that I'm a part of that really taught me the importance of holding space. Because when you're going into a situation where there's a lot of emotion there, then you can't just be railroading it or moving it forward. You have to hold that space for them. And I think that that's something that a lot of mediums forget. It's not about you giving this information and firing it off and being this fantastic medium. It's about connecting to your sitter and holding that space to what they're receiving and how they're receiving it. Because you do not want to be, you don't want them to walk away and feel like they've been beaten up from that reading. Because that can be emotionally. I remember the first time that I actually had a reading for my father, and this medium brought in a lot of information that I hadn't really faced with my father. And if he just would have went blah, I just would have walked away like a pile of mush.
Yeah,
it would have been horrible.
Well, and I think too, if you follow the lead of the spirit, again, they're going to give it to you exactly the way that it needs to be received. Right. So really, like, I can't stress that enough. If you really focus on following spirit, a lot of these concerns you don't have to worry about. Right. You can get out of your thinking mind and not worry about that, because the spirit world's going to bring you something right after, maybe something heavy that is really inspiring and that reminds them of the good things. Right. So if you let the spirit world guide that process, you're going to have greater success and a lot less of these worries that we might have. I apologize. I did not put a light on.
You did not. You're getting darker by
I know. I'm just like, I'm like trying to get closer to the screen. Like, you can still see me, right? Like,
we can.
I just want to grab this light really quick. Let me just grab
the light. And I'm not seeing all your guys' comments. Tracy, it's so good to see you. I wondered where you've been. I missed you. Yeah, I've missed you. And I'll read all your comments later about this. I hope this has been helpful to you all.
Almost there.
Okay.
I feel so bad. I was like, oh no.
No.
I'm getting darker and darker by the second. I didn't think it was okay. That'll teach me. Okay. There we go. This will help you guys see my face.
I'm reading your guys' comments and questions and stuff right now. And wow, look at, there he is. You know, the thing about it, though, is we still have to be in some kind of control of the conversation, even though we're following the lead. I believe, in my experience, we're following the lead of spirit. Sometimes I can tend to, I know this is something I'll do, is I'll get so connected to spirit that I'm not paying attention to the sitter. And that's where okay, slow down, take a breath. You know, you got to pay attention to what they're experiencing as well. That's what I was saying about that.
Yeah, and that is part of the training and the development, right? You learn how to connect into your sitter. You wouldn't want to just like close your eyes and drift off into what you're experiencing with the sitter. But again, I think it always comes back to, if you follow the spirit world, they're going to let you know. And you're going to feel that too, right? You're going to feel that while you're speaking to them, while you're connecting to them, that you need to connect in with them for a moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And I think that's right. That the first time that happened to me, I was speaking to this woman whose son had passed. And as this information was coming, I started feeling her and then feeling the communicator at the same time. It was really a surreal experience, but it really taught me the taking breaths while I was doing my reading as well. Because I just can get like, just moving and moving and moving, which I guess is, that's spirit too, spirit led.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to that, but
I think it's always it's a dance, right? Your connection with the spirit world is a dance, and it's going to impact the way that you connect to your sitter, and it's going to impact the way you connect with the spirit world.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What's on your horizons now?
Yeah, so we have a lot going on with Oak Ridge Institute.
Mhm.
So we have a ton of classes and workshop. We have a psychism course that's being launched, which I'm
Mhm.
really excited about. That's on the 18th of January. If you have any, it's psychism 2 instead of 1. We're teaching psychism 1 later. So if you have any experience with mediumship, then you are eligible to kind of petition into the class. Otherwise, you should have taken Foundations 1 with us, or some other foundational course. Um, so excited about that. We started the advancing course at Oak Ridge. So it's like the third level for students as they move through our courses, which is really exciting. And we will probably be doing a tour. Myself, Megan, Elisa, and my other medium friend Joshua John will likely be doing a tour over the summertime. So a tour of the West Coast, so doing demonstrations and things like that,
Oh,
which is going to be really
wow.
exciting. Yeah, we're really
Are
excited
you
about that.
setting that up already?
Yeah.
How long
Yeah.
is your tour gonna be?
It's probably going to be over probably like a 2-week span or something like that. But they're kind
Wow.
of like clumped together, so it's not like we're constantly on the road. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. So we're putting all that together. And then I'll probably write another book at some point. Who knows? Maybe October. I'll cancel everything and just sit down and write another book because I love it. I really loved writing it.
Mhm.
There's just so many other things we could talk about. I mean, this is one step, right? This is learning how
Yep.
to make that link with the spirit world.
Right.
But that's just the beginning, right? It's the
Yes.
beginning. And mediumship really isn't about the message. It really isn't
Right.
about the phenomena of mediumship. It's about the personal development. So I do think that there's going to
Mhm.
likely be something to do with that in around the next books about your own development, personal development. And one that I really want to write is the caring and feeding of mediums,
Mhm.
because there are some specific things that apply to that, both mentally, emotionally, physically, that I think are really important to hit on. So there's a ton of things where we can go with that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, that's wonderful. How are you gonna be advertising your tour?
Social media, all of our social
Really?
media stuff. So if you're interested in that and you're on the West Coast, definitely give us a follow, and you'll be told. So on any one of the
Uh-huh.
social media platforms, Medium Michael Mayo is it always.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, talking about all mediumship. I didn't see any questions as I was browsing that was of dire need. I think we've covered it all, the basics. Any last golden nugget you would like to leave for everybody?
Yeah. So uh, take time in your journey of development. There
Mhm.
is no rush. There is no finish line that you need to arrive to, or that you need to, hit at any point. This is something that unfolds over time, and the more time you give it to mature, the better it's going to be, and you're going to avoid a lot of what we often can feel, which is a lot of students can feel like they're a fraud, or they're really super nervous, or they're scared to do this kind of thing. Um, and it's so important for us to allow ourselves the time to mature and develop our mediumship. Just because we can give a message doesn't mean we're now a medium. We need to develop ourselves. We need to develop spiritualize yourself. That is the most important thing. The spiritualization of the self
Mhm.
is going to make mediumship a byproduct of that process. So cultivating things like love, compassion,
Mhm.
kindness, forgiveness,
Mhm.
understanding, these are the things that are going to help to feed your mediumship rather than, oh, I need to get this message and I need to be this medium. Does that make sense?
It only makes sense because I've been through it. So yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I really do. I when you were saying that, the feeling that I got is that when you feel that connection with spirit, because you feel that bonding, that connection as you're blending, you feel that love. And I think for me, it's really helped because I didn't really understand love. And so it's really helped me to understand love and the importance of why we do it, which is to show that we never die, that we keep moving. It's funny because my mom called me last night and she was asking me about if I thought my dad was in heaven or hell. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure he's in heaven. But it's people's ideas of things. So, I just love feeling that love. And that's really helped me with my own inner work because I need to know what love was really like or what it really felt like. And
Yeah.
boy, did I learn that when I worked with spirit. You just feel it.
Absolutely. The amount of love, peace. And this is why people are like, "Are you afraid of like XYZ? What if there's like a spirit that's like," I'm like, "There's nothing scary,
Mhm.
negative, or bad from the spirit world.
Absolutely.
Literally nothing. I have never had anything other than more love, more compassion, more peace, more
Exactly.
stillness, more tranquility. Like
Mhm.
those are the gifts of the spirit. That's what comes from working with the other world. I've
Right.
never had a scary or negative or bad experience. I don't
Mhm.
think anyone needs to ever. So, yeah.
I don't think so either. I think that I have to say the only one time that I had something that scared me was something I didn't understand.
Of course.
But once I understood it, I realized what happened or what was going on. It was like, absolutely. And but the thing about it is that I had such trust for spirit to know that there was nothing to fear. So
Right.
because I had that relationship with spirit and I kept on moving through the experience, I realized on the other side where that fear came from. And it came from me not knowing where we were going. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know about this. And then as soon as it started going in the right direction, I was like, oh, see, there was nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
the problem is most people will freak out at that point,
Right.
and
And then
then that just feeds it. That just feeds
right.
it and makes it worse. And then you think you're under a psychic attack now.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also, I mean, to differentiate between being startled by something or actually having genuine fear. Like
Right.
I have been startled by
Yeah.
things. Like when my phone went flying off the desk when I asked the spirit to do it. That startled me. I was not expecting that to actually happen.
Oh my god.
Um, that was startling, but I wasn't afraid of the other world. It was never a fear that something bad was gonna happen. It was just like, I was not expecting that. I'm sitting in the dark for, 15 minutes, and suddenly my phone goes flying off the thing. So, yeah, that was a little
Ah,
startling. Different from being fear
uh,
or afraid of the other world.
right. That is very much and that's exactly really when you said that, that's more of what I felt. It was that startle feel, "Oh, this is new. This is something
Mhm.
I'm not aware of or I haven't experienced before." And we're always I'm apprehensive of things I don't know.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
yeah, I have and I've done readings for people that were not in life, were not really good people.
Yeah,
And yet they're loving people. My dad, I hated my dad when he was here on the earth. I hated him.
yeah,
And I would not ever say that anybody should have had him as a father.
yeah.
But I know him as a soul now, and I know that he is not that person and he's full of love and trying to heal and mend. And so it's like you guys it's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience.
Absolutely.
Anyway, hence we go off on another subject. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. I sure appreciate your time and wisdom and for you sharing it with all of our audience.
Thank you, Joanna. It was my pleasure to be here, and please have me back anytime you want.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.